SEC Media Days 2025. Sankey spun, Kirby dodged, and McElroy might have summoned Saban from his lake house. This is the Nitro College Football Show. I'm Burl.
And I'm Street.
And tonight we're breaking down everything that mattered and didn't from SEC Media Days. Playoff posturing, rule changes aimed at Georgia, it seems like. And, the SEC saying 8 games is still enough, and the rest of college football hating on it. So we're going to talk about that tonight. So let's get into it.
Yeah, man. So the sports world turns its attention to Atlanta this week. We had the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. But before that, we had SEC Media Days kicking off in Atlanta from the College Football Hall of Fame. And as in its typical self, a little bit of truth, a little bit of lies, and a lot of people saying really stupid things that aren't going to matter in a month's time from now. Starting straight off, Greg Sankey kicks it off, just like he always does, given the line, college athletics aren't broken, they're just strained. Now, we asked the question a few weeks ago, are college athletics broken? And now he's asking it. I don't know.
Strained is a weird word to say that they just don't agree on anything.
Yeah. I mean, right here at the front. First and foremost thing that he touched on, 8 conference games, 9 conference games. We all know what the deal is, right? Big Ten says, we have 9 conference games. You need to have 9 conference games. SEC says, our conference is hard enough. We don't need 9 conference games. So what he said is absolutely fully 100% correct. At the SEC, we play 8 conference games while some others play 9 games. It's also correct that last season, all 16 members of the SEC played at least 9 games against what would label as power conference opponents. We had several that played 10 of their 12 games against power opponents. Some conferences have that, some don't. And so he's right. The Big Ten, while they have 9 conference games, they don't have a requirement that you play another out-of-conference team. Case in point, Indiana, who canceled the only Power 5 team that it had on its next 5 years worth of schedules and canceling their game with Virginia. They snuck into the playoff last year.
Yeah.
Looks like they're trying to do it again.
Yeah. I mean, they figured out the code. They have the algorithm. And why play against really tough out of conference games that you are more prone to lose or have a higher probability of losing and missing out on getting that playoff bid?
Yep.
I mean, it makes sense.
It totally makes sense. So Kirby Smart kind of addressed this a little bit when he was talking. He got asked a question about the potential expansion to a 9th game and potentially losing the Auburn game. And Kirby said he understands. He's from South Georgia. He said he was a lot closer to Auburn than he was to Athens growing up. So a lot of people down there, that was an important game, being from the state, but being closer to Auburn. But he said that, look, all of the games in conference are important. And in terms of what's important for the postseason, clearly wins and losses meant something. So if you're going to add a 9th conference game to the schedule, well, that means you're going to add 9 more losses to the league. And if losses are really that important, which it seemed like they were last year, why would you want to do that to the conference when it's already hard enough?
Yeah, especially if it really seemed like the losses meant more than the wins last year.
Right. And they're supposed to be adding a strength of schedule, strength of wins element this year, but
they've been saying that every year since the beginning of college football that I can ever remember. Especially once the playoffs hit, and it never gets taken into account ever.
Right.
So maybe I guess the BCS probably did the best at it because it was literally a computer.
Yeah. But even some of those computers were weird because they factored in some of them factored in higher on just points scored. So if you scheduled really, really bad teams and you ran up the score, then that totally whacked it the other way as well. So
yeah, I remember those days. Well, I mean, you still have that.
Yeah, you absolutely do. Style points, I guess, is a thing.
Because a lot of the voters, they're just looking at the end result. They're not going to go back and watch the game and see that, it was think about Georgia Tech last year. Georgia comes back out of absolutely nowhere. But
Right.
when you
They
look
played
when you
like
look
crap,
at
but
the
a win is a win, right?
right, but when you look at the final score, it was a really good game, but Georgia was getting the crap beat out of them all the game, the whole game until the end.
Right. Right. And so perspective, if you think about it this way, in terms of how we're looking at schedules, there's some metrics on who has the hardest schedule in the country. And I saw an interesting thing that popped up yesterday when Georgia was taking its turn. Georgia, coming into the 2025 season, has the 8th hardest schedule in the country. It's also 8th in the SEC. So 8th hardest schedule in the SEC, 8th hardest schedule in the country. So that means that the top 7 above them are all SEC teams as well.
That's nuts. That's absolutely nuts. So here's my thing about this. It's annoying to me that this is still going on. We have this same debate over the Thanksgiving dinner because all my in-laws are Ohio State fans, and the 9th game is a huge topic. And the more I've thought about it and pondered it over these past few weeks, because it keeps coming up, and even today, we get news that the Big Ten's not going to back down from that push to 9 games. Well, if it bothers you so bad and you think it's such a competitive advantage, change your rules. You go down to 8 games.
Absolutely.
Why not?
There's nobody telling you that you have to have 9 games.
Yeah. It's very simple. But then they'd have to schedule more out of conference games.
I guess maybe you shouldn't have made your conference all the way across the country.
Yeah, it's tough.
So as you mentioned, it came out today that as it goes for the playoff format, Sankey said, that the discussions are ongoing, that he talks to the commissioner of the Big Ten all the time. He said that they had talked 4 out of the last 5 days about it, and they are absolutely fully in control. The decision-making is up to them. So it came out today that the SEC and the Big Ten are at an impasse over the whole playoff format. The Big Ten is insisting that the SEC go to a 9th conference game. The SEC is insisting that they go to the playoff format they are wanting, which is 5 automatic bids and 11 at-larges. And it seems like neither one of them wants to budge. These are the 2 conferences that have all the power. The Big 12 and the ACC don't really have a say. So if either side won't back down, Sankey did touch on this yesterday before kind of this whole deal about the impasse came out, is he said that, if a decision's not made, there's a deadline. And if it's not made, then maybe the 12-team playoff format is here to stay. If they can't make a decision to change it.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna keep going back and forth and arguing about it. Honestly, at this point, I don't know which one would be better, which one would be worse. Because 12 teams, in my opinion, is enough. And once you go beyond that, then you really are creating NFL light. Because once you have these automatic qualifiers and ways to get into the playoffs, the rankings don't mean jack. I mean, that just helps for seeding, and that's it.
I think ultimately the only thing that fixes all this is some kind of realignment that moves around so that the conferences are a little more even in the haves and have-not programs. And then, and eventually you get to some kind of uniform scheduling. Eventually, that's what you need. But right now, the SEC is so much stronger, top to bottom, than these other conferences. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and check out our video from a few weeks ago where we fixed college football.
Absolutely. Other thing that Sankey touched on briefly was showing some support for what they're calling the SCORE Act, which has been proposed in Congress. It's a follow-up to the whole House settlement deal. Just some of the high points of that: it would reinstate the one-time transfer rule. So I'm in for that because I'm sick of guys transferring all over the place. That would be great. It adds some restrictions on agents who represent college students and how much money they can take. Right now, the average is like 10 to 12%, but in the pros, it's only like 5%. And so that's what the limit would be.
Those are great. Those would be great things to happen, especially with the one transfer rule. That is the one thing that caused all the craziness that we've seen the past few years. I mean, take NIL out of it, it still would be really crazy.
Yeah. Some other things is it outlines the anti-employment clause. So all this talk about, well, would they need to make them employees? This would explicitly say that student athletes are not employees. They're getting revenue share. They're going to be protected. They are adding a bunch of benefits that they would get related to degree completion, sexual violence prevention, tax education, career support, as well as health insurance for 3 years post graduation. And they would also prevent revoking of scholarships. So that would help. Even though they wouldn't be employees, they would be getting a lot of employee like protections, which I
Yeah,
think would help student athletes.
Those some great benefits.
Yeah. And then another thing is that this act would also do would help protect other sports. It would require that all schools maintain 16 varsity sports, which is already it's already a requirement at the FBS level that you have to have 16 varsity sports, but this would hopefully help prevent the cutting of Olympic sports at the FCS level.
Yeah, I mean, if they cut, if Olympic sports start getting cut, we're going to start to suck in the Olympics.
Yeah. And then the last provision in there was it was to prevent schools from using student fees to help pay for revenue sharing, which is interesting because this kind of seems like this is a direct hit at Tennessee. The University of Tennessee tried to add a talent fee as part of their student athletic fees and stuff. Or no, sorry, Tennessee was adding a talent fee to their season tickets. It was Clemson that was trying to add an athletic fee to its student fees to help pay for this revenue sharing thing. Kind of a dirty tactic, right? Pass the buck on. So
that doesn't sound very Dabo like.
He probably didn't have anything to do with it. So
probably.
Yeah. So that, like I said, the SCORE Act, he was speaking well on it. There's been some other news today that Trump may issue some kind of executive order related to NIL regulation and all this stuff. So once again, the fight with the government and all this is nowhere near over. We're just in the early days of revenue sharing and NIL Go. It's already a mess. The NIL Go clearinghouse is saying that collectives are not a valid business purpose, and so therefore they are not approving deals with collectives. Some schools have already scrapped their collectives. It's already getting to be a mess really quick.
I think that's a good thing, getting rid of these collectives, because it's annoying to me going to a game and you have to see your head coach say, hey, donate to your local collective so we can get good players.
Yeah. All right. So some other things, not necessarily Greg Sankey related, that came out of SEC Media Days. One thing was the trailer drop for the new Netflix documentary about the SEC. Kind of looks like a Hard Knocks / crossed with, Full Swing that they did for the PGA Tour and the thing they did for F1. My question to you, Burl, does this excite you at all? Because we know Georgia, Bama, I think Texas, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, they all said they weren't doing it. So they're not even in it. Does this excite you, though?
I mean, kind of. I mean, all these Netflix sports-related shows have been typically really good. Like the, Receivers was good. Quarterbacks that just came out is pretty good. So I would expect this to be on par with that. It's not as exciting to me since my team is not in it, which pretty much that's my philosophy on sports in general. It's hard for me to get into something if I don't have a real team that I care about in it.
Yeah. I mean, I think 10, 15 years ago, I would have been really excited. Back then, like Hard Knocks in the summer was awesome. Like I looked forward to Hard Knocks every year. Now it's on. I'm like, I might watch it. But I also kind of understand what goes on behind the world of football programs now. It's been covered ad nauseum. And it's not even even at the SEC level. Wasn't Alabama on a show that was like on Prime? I know Notre Dame was.
I thought there was an ACC one that was on Prime. Yeah.
There was a Notre Dame one a few years ago too. I know, but there's been a bunch of these. So the idea of going behind the scenes of a football program is not I guess it's just not as cool as it used to be.
Yeah.
I'll probably watch it, but to say I'm excited about it, yeah.
I may or may not watch it. There's so much stuff on Netflix.
There's so much other stuff to keep up with.
I'm so far behind on anything right now when it comes to watching TV. It's becoming quite a difficult thing to do.
All right. So another thing that came out that happened yesterday or on Monday, I guess, Greg McElroy kicked the hornet's nest. Talk a little bit about it, Burl.
So Greg McElroy reports that someone important that he trusts says that Nick Saban could be on his way back to coaching in college football. So this got all kinds of speculation going. Is he going to come back to actually coach, be a head coach, or is he going to be a coordinator somewhere? And we got some really funny stuff out of it. I know, we were joking. I said he could take Muschamp's spot, and I think Kirby even made that joke today.
Kirby did, yeah, yesterday. And so, yeah, one of the things Kirby was talking about, they were asking him because apparently Will Muschamp was off of the Georgia coaches page or something, and so everybody's like, "Oh, I guess Will Muschamp is done at Georgia." Somebody asked Kirby that, and he said, "No, Will's going to be around the program. He's just an analyst, but he's going to be around. It just got clerical error or whatever." And he said, "But I did offer the job to Saban."
Yeah, real up and coming young coach.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's funny. I think some other reporters have kind of called McElroy out. At 73, 74 years old, very kind of set in his place at Alabama and with College Game Day, he couldn't come and be an assistant for anybody.
I don't see why he would want to unless he doesn't like all the other stuff he's doing. And plus,
right,
plus Miss Terry probably ain't gonna let him do that.
Right, but I mean, he's not going to go back to Alabama. They're a second year into DeBoer, and they got to build the program for the future.
Well, he is helping them recruit.
Right, but he did that last year, and he helps. He still helps out. It's like Spurrier hanging around in Gainesville. I mean,
yeah, but it's different when it's Nick Saban.
True.
I mean,
I just don't
just look at Bama's class this year. I mean, it's a really good class.
Yeah,
we're not seeing any drop off yet.
I just don't see a way that he gets back into coaching. You can't see him as an assistant. You can't see him taking a spot for somebody. I mean, it would be worse than a Belichick situation. Like, I just can't see it.
I mean, literally, if he was going to do anything, it would be some kind of analyst type thing where he's just kind of consulting a little bit.
Which I think he already does that at Alabama.
Yeah. And I'm sure Kirby and all the other guys that coached under Saban talk to him all the time and pick his brain.
Kirby said that. Kirby said
they're always texting.
He said they text and they talk about defensive ideas in formations and how they would change things all the time. And they bounce ideas off each other. So, yeah.
See, that's why Alabama was always able to beat Georgia.
Because Nick Saban's dirty cheater. No.
Because Saban's coming up with these crazy defensive ideas. He's like, I'm not going to use any of those.
He wrote it down in his little green notebook, all his secret plays. Waterboy, shut up. Last thing of importance that kind of came out during the first couple of days of media days was some discussion on rule changes. So they're putting some rule changes in place about the whole faking injuries thing. I don't know exactly what the details were on that one. But then they also talked about a new penalty for a delay of game on the defense. And this one seems like it's kind of directed at Georgia. So Georgia has kind of become famous for this formation where we line up on defense and we have guys shift. And it draws people off all the time. Georgia is excellent at it. And we caught it when we played Notre Dame that year at home. And it happened a couple of times in the Texas game last year, which got their fans all high and mighty saying that's the reason they lost the game. Okay. But basically it just says that if you make a movement at the line that causes a false start, then it's not going to be a false start on the offensive lineman. They're going to call the penalty on the defensive line for a delay of game. At first, this sounded really bad. But then I actually watched the video that they put up, that they showed in the media days. And that movement, it's called stemming, where you move side to side. That is still allowed. The specific example that they showed, there were two linemen who stemmed, who moved to their right, but there was a third defensive lineman who was down, who kind of flinched, but he didn't move, and that caused the false start. So they're saying that guy who kind of flinched but didn't move, that's the one that the penalty would be called on. So you're still going to be allowed to shift. It's just if you have a guy on the line who kind of doesn't shift or moves, kind of almost like a defensive false start, essentially, that's where the penalty is going to come.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because you always think about on defense, you can move anywhere, right? You're like the queen on the chessboard. You're able to go anywhere, and on offense, obviously, if you're on offensive line, you can't move at all. You flinch, you do anything, you sneeze. Unless you're in the middle of an audible or something, you're going to get called. So it's a little strange that it feels like they're making the defensive line have to follow the same rules as the offensive line in a way, but it is different. I'll give them that. It makes a little bit of sense as long as your line is doing some kind of shift as a unit, and not just someone flinching and trying to draw someone off sides. That's no different than a linebacker clapping or yelling "hut" or whatever.
I mean, you could say that this isn't directed at Georgia, though you kind of got to feel like it is a little bit, because they said that some teams had noticed this was happening and spoke up about it. And Georgia's really has been the best at it. It's been part of what our defense has done. I've seen it. We've done it for years.
Yeah.
So you do kind of got to feel like it's directed at Georgia. I mean,
oh, absolutely. But last year, we saw other teams do that to Georgia too.
Right.
So it's like, oh, finally you're getting with the program. Instead of just complaining about, oh, they can't be allowed to do that. If they can do it,
it's because it's hard. You've got to be organized. And I guess, because I feel like they did occasionally call some penalties for illegal shifts on the defense last year a little bit, but this just seems like this is a little bit more defined.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it's called. I think they asked Kirby about it, and once again, Kirby says, we'll see. It sounds like it's going to be one of those things left to the referee's discretion. And if you ask me, and you're leaving it up to an SEC referee to make a discretion, he's going to make the wrong call 95% of the time.
Yeah, I don't see this going very well at all, because the human beings that are SEC officials, it's a crapshoot. Each one's going to be different. Each one's going to have some kind of thing where they just are going to focus on that just because of it's Georgia or it's some other team.
I mean, it's like the early years of the targeting penalty, right? Where it was ridiculous and they called everything and there were no overturns and there was no replay and it was just, you were kicked out of the game. Hopefully it's not that bad.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not one of those point of emphasis type things where they try to call it more than other things in general. But yeah, it's a total shot at Georgia.
Yeah. So speaking of Georgia, Tuesday was Georgia's day at SEC Media Days. So we saw Kirby there. He spoke with the media, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. He also brought 3 guys with him. He brought Gunnar Stockton, CJ Allen, and Dalen Everett. Talk a little bit about the players first. I didn't really hear anything out of them that was that interesting. What do you think, bro?
I mean, they were definitely coached very well on their interactions with the media. I got to give it to them. I mean, every single answer that came out of them was just bland coach speak type responses. Yeah. Every time Gunnar got asked something, he was like, yeah, that guy's awesome. We're going to focus on us.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because Georgia hasn't named a starter at quarterback, but by taking Gunner Stockton, it pretty much says, yes, he's the starter. When they asked Kirby about it and they asked Gunner about it, both of them kind of said the same thing that, Kirby entrusts me to be a leader and that's what I'm going to do. And we're going to work together. And Kirby has confidence in me. And Kirby talked about, well, Gunner is a leader and he rallies the team and just kind of generic coach speak. Um, Dalen Everett, I didn't hear anything interesting out of Dalen Everett, honestly. Um, just very generic. CJ Allen had a couple of interesting things that could have been brought up. One thing he did say, they were talking a little bit about this team versus last year, and he said, this is a different team, but he said that last year he felt like sometimes they lacked the juice, that sometimes they weren't as juiced up enough, and that's
I agree with
interesting.
that 100%.
And that's interesting because, and we'll get to Kirby's comments about the youthfulness on the team this year versus last year, but it was a more kind of senior laden team last year, especially, on the defensive side of the ball. And so that's interesting. That's interesting that they weren't, jacked up for these crazy games. And maybe that was a sign of the leadership on the team. We talked about it. We've talked about it with Carson Beck. Maybe it just there wasn't a leader who was really going and pushing those guys. And CJ Allen was a sophomore last year. Yes, he had started some as a freshman and was a starter, but maybe this is a sign that, this is his team, that he's going to take the lead there and he recognizes it and he's not going to let that happen. So I was encouraged by that.
No, I love it. It's great to hear him say that, because how many times last year did I just turn to you and say, what is up with this team? They just don't look like they have the heart that our defense normally has. I mean, that Mississippi State game, Georgia let them come back. It was stupid.
So let's talk a little bit about what Kirby Smart had to say. General observation, and did you watch everything? I kind of went back and watched all the video of Kirby talking. Did you get a chance to watch it all?
Yeah. I listened to it on my ride home because it's pretty short.
Yeah. So my general observations are that Kirby really focused talking about the team and what they do and how they do things. He didn't want to give anybody bulletin board material. There was a couple of questions asked about specific teams and players, and he pretty much stayed away from those. It also seemed like there was a lot of questions from the media for Texas and Alabama, and he tried to kind of push away from those as well.
Yeah, but when it comes to bulletin board material, the whole thing about relationships over transactions, I get it. It's a great message. But given the fact that on that same day, Georgia lost two big time commitments, flipped right to Texas. It's very Justice Terry like.
Yeah. That was one of his big quotes. He said, "We sell relationships over transactions. We don't believe in being transactional. When you're transactional, you cannot reach your ultimate goal without relationships." So that was his quote. And all day Kirby talked about the changing landscape. The thing he kept saying was fire, passion, and energy. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for players with fire, passion, and energy. And he said that he used to see it a lot in these top players. And he said he doesn't see it as much anymore.
Yeah, I mean, just think about that clip of Nakobe Dean and Channing Tindall.
Right. And he said that the more and more he feels like these players are getting comfortable. They're getting comfortable because it used to be that when you came into school, you were working towards that paycheck, which was the NFL. That was the ultimate goal. Now they're coming in and they're getting paid now. So they've already achieved something. While yes, they want to continue to get better, they've already achieved something. They're already getting paid. And so Kirby said, look, he said, somebody might say, I'm earning $200,000 a year. I'm very comfortable. Well, you don't reach your goals when you're being comfortable.
Yeah. Comfort and complacency. And complacency has always been the number one enemy of any top-notch program. And Kirby said that he was harping on that a lot last year, because you reach the mountaintop, it's hard to get there, but it's even harder to stay. And this is just another challenge that he has to go through with these kids who have never had money. And then could you imagine having millions of dollars when you're 17?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, even like you said, even can you imagine having $200,000
No.
when you were 17? Like
would have
it's
been
nuts. And for anybody, even if you already have money, yeah, you're going to be a little bit complacent because you're like, I'm at least comfortable. It's the whole, they used to talk about last year, eating off the floor, right? Like Kirby used to felt his teams had that attitude. And he said a couple times that he didn't feel like they had that attitude last year. And you could tell it when those national championship teams had that attitude, because even with all that talent they had, they were on each other. They busted their tail. They worked hard, and you could see it that they wanted it. They were passionate. They were held each other accountable. And it's tough to find those guys nowadays.
And that all ties back to the original message about relationships over transactions. Because he's talked, him and the rest of the team have said this over and over the past 4 years that I can remember about connectedness and the team being connected. The more connected those teams are, the more they gel and the more they push each other, hold each other accountable, and ultimately win championships.
And I think for Kirby this year is going to be interesting. Another topic that he really, really hit home when he was talking about this year's team is the youth. And he came out and he said it. He said that the 2025 Georgia team is going to be comprised of 54% first and second year players. So that's true freshmen, true sophomores, and redshirt freshmen. That's nuts for a Kirby Smart team.
It really is, because he's really big on developing players. And one thing he was talking about is people ask him, how are you going to be able to accelerate this growth with the youth of the team? And he's like, there is no accelerating development. You just have to go through it and put in the work and get there. So
that was a reporter asked him that. He was like, what do you do to accelerate it? And he was like, well, that's a dumb question, because you can't. He said they were older last year because that was the end of the COVID class year, right? You had a lot of guys who had 5th, 6th years that normally wouldn't have been there, and they had aged out. He said, we're especially young on the offensive line and especially young on the defensive line this year. And it's going to be a challenge. So whereas last year it was weird because they did have a lot of this veteran presence and they struggled, this year it might be a different story. If they struggle, it may be that they struggle early, but they get a lot better later in the year because they're just young.
True. But I mean, if you're 54% first and second year, then that means you're 46% upperclassmen?
Yeah, but that 46% that's upper class, you've had some guys that were upperclassmen that were high talent guys that have been poached, right? Georgia's lost a number of guys. They've lost multiple 5-star players, particularly
on defense.
Well, if they've been poached,
then they're not part of the roster.
Well, I know, but I'm saying that's could be part of the reason that it's 54%, where if, let's say, for example, Marvin Jones Jr. was still around, if those guys are still around, then your upper class percentage is higher. So it's partly this transfer culture, and it's partly the portal, and it's partly this attitude that guys have now that when these are high guys who are making money coming in, they expect to play. And look no further than what happened with Tyler Atkinson yesterday, right? This is a kid from the state of Georgia, from Grayson High School. Georgia was his first offer. They offered him in 8th grade. That relationship has been there the whole time. He has made so many visits to Georgia constantly. He made 2 visits to Texas. 2. He committed to Texas yesterday, and there was a joke, a fake thing that came out and said he was protecting his brand. That wasn't real. The rumors are that, yes, Texas offered more money, but it wasn't an insane amount of money, apparently. Kind of in the last days, the rumor were that his representatives said, hey, what's your final offer? Georgia the rumor is Georgia didn't really budge on theirs. They had a good offer in. Texas upped it a little bit, but it wasn't like crazy. This wasn't a Jackson Cantwell situation at all. It was really more a little bit about money, but a lot about opportunity. Georgia is deep in the inside linebacking room, very deep. And there was not going to be a position to be a starter next year for him. But looking at the linebacker depth at Texas, and from what everything I've heard online, he's probably going to go and start there day one. And they were able to back it up with the money and give him a chance to come in and start day one.
Yeah. And I can't fault him for that, really. I mean, you want to play, you want to start. I totally get that. And it's not like going to Texas, you're not going to get developed and you're not going to get drafted. I mean, Texas is a great program, and
they're probably going to have the Buckets Award winner this year at Texas. Georgia's won it 3 times, in the recent years. They're probably going to have the winner. They're going to have the guys the favorite coming into this year. So,
but it also does tell you a little bit about the person themselves, because there's people in front of them at Georgia, but if you are all you're cracked up to be and you believe in yourself, like, you want to compete against the best, iron sharpens iron, right? And if you are the best, you're going to be starting. And if you're good enough, Kirby's going to let you start as a freshman.
Right. I don't know how much this changing revenue share, obviously we're getting into contracts, right? So I don't know how much that also plays into it, because you may be going somewhere where now with revenue sharing, you're signing a contract. So you're going in 3 years, and if, to get out of it, to transfer, you can still do it, but you might be having to pay penalties. So maybe that factors into the decision as well. The other kid who flipped from Georgia to Texas yesterday, Johnson, that sounds like that's a money scenario. He'd only been committed to Georgia for a couple of weeks and was raving over, I'm going to develop, and I had these great relationships, That one screams a little bit more Justice Terry to me, where it was just Texas came in and offered a ton of money, and they were going to get Atkinson, and they knew that they were at media days that day and they wanted to make a splash, and they did.
What does the $1 million man always say?
I don't know.
Everybody's got a price.
That's right. And, it's funny because obviously Texas had these 2 top recruits, and Sark stood up there yesterday and was like, oh, at Texas, we don't always lead with the NIL money, and we don't have the same amount of money that some of these other programs do. And there was a thing released out that Texas was the #1 spender in all the country, that they famously last year led recruits out onto the field with Lamborghinis. Like,
there's fine. A video of that.
Right. It's fine. You're Texas and you have more money than anybody in the SEC. Why are you ashamed? Why are you trying to act like, own it? Who cares? It's legal. You're not doing anything wrong. Texas, you don't see Texas Tech trying to hide it. They're like, yeah, we're spending money.
Yeah. It's not like that Southern guilt where, you look down on the rich folks, right? It's in this day and age, it's all about the bling, man. And I'm showing my millennial age here. Like these players, that lifestyle, I mean, that's a selling point. Like, oh, I want to go to where the most money is. Hell yeah, right. Let's do that.
Right. And if you're a kid from a poor family, you got to do that, man.
That makes me wonder why we're not seeing Miami really go back to the 80s Miami kind of view of things.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's rules in place. And as I mentioned, NIL Go is not clearing a bunch of stuff. So you're either going to have people and staffs around that can figure this stuff out and are getting things through, which clearly Texas is, or you might be other places that are struggling to get stuff through.
Well, let me ask you this. When does the rules actually kick in?
They're supposed to be in place now. So July 1st, everything went into effect July 1st. So I think it was mid-June when you could start submitting deals. through NIL Go, and then July 1st, the revenue sharing and stuff officially kicked in July 1st.
Okay, so the salary caps are already there.
The salary cap will be effective for this year, yes.
Okay.
But keep in
Because
mind,
at first I was thinking like, oh, okay, they're just trying to load up before the salary cap stuff
lots of schools did. They had way more NIL stuff come through right before NIL Go went live. So lots of schools did. Like Cantwell was probably all processed and went through before that. So if they paid them up front, they just paid them.
And then, of course, everybody at Texas Tech.
Yeah, everybody.
Wish I could go play for Texas Tech. That'd be great.
Yeah. So last thing Kirby did touch on, he gave an injury update on Georgia heading into fall camp. Roderick Robinson, full go. I saw some video of him. He looks healthy. He looks in shape.
He was running hills, man.
So that's a good sign. Would love to have a healthy Roderick Robinson in that backfield. Munro Freeling is a full go as well. Expected to start at left tackle. You saw him last year when he was healthy versus when he was not. Late in the year, he was not, and he was bad. When he was healthy, he was good, which is why he was starting over Ernest Green, a lot there. But when he was hurt, he was bad. So that's great to get him back. There are a couple of guys who are working back from tightrope surgery. Jaden Riddell, the tight end, Quintavious Johnson, the linebacker. Kirby said they should be back late in camp, early season. Andre Evans tore his ACL right at the end of the spring, so he's probably going to be out for a while. And then he talked on Brett Thorson. He said Brett Thorson is working his way back. He is kicking. He said he can't guarantee that Thorson's going to be ready to go game one, but he's working really hard, and he'll be back at some point, and he'll be the starting punter when he's healthy. So that's the injury update from Kirby. And that was kind of everything that was really interesting that he said.
Speaking of the Robinsons, so Robinson transferred to Georgia State today.
Yeah, I think he had already committed to transfer there. I saw that they sent out the graphic. I think that's a good
official today.
That's a good spot with our former running back coach is the head coach there. So
yeah, I was happy to see that. I hope it all works out for him. And I'm really glad to see Roger Robinson back at it. I mean, those videos of him running those hills, he looks like he's a beast.
Dude, he is a beast of a man.
Yeah, if he could stay healthy the rest of his college career, look out. That's a dark horse, top player in the country type.
So last thing for tonight, and what we're calling the Dion Minute. Dion Sanders at Big 12 Media Day talked a little bit about uniforms. He said that he is in support of regulations in college football. He said, you look in the NFL, players get fined if their uniforms aren't up to code, right? They have to have pads on their knees and their socks tucked in certain colors and things like that. You look around college football, and a lot of these guys are wearing pants that are not really pants. They're shorts. They don't have any pads on their thighs. They don't have pads on their knees and everything. And he just said it's kind of dangerous. So, Burl, do you think that having uniform rules would be good for college football?
I just think it's funny coming from Dion.
Right. You think about Dion Flash,
of all the people who would be complaining about uniforms, I would not pick Dion Sanders. that just cracks me up. I mean, I guess maybe there's like some kind of, I mean, obviously there's a little bit of competitive advantage when you don't have all the pads in your pants, because you can run a little bit faster, a little bit more mobility. But I mean, 90% of who wears knee pads anymore? I feel like I never see anybody wear knee pads anymore.
Well, then you feel like Dion, because that's what he said. Like think about all those
even in
think
the
about
NFL.
every highlight. Think about every highlight video of Brock Bowers, right? And how high his pants were. I mean, they were basically shorts. I don't know. I mean, if you're, college football, they're always talking about player safety. If you wanted player safety, then maybe you have uniform rules and pad rules and things like that. But I don't know.
You got personal choice. You know what the risks are when you sign up and you go out there if you don't wear pads.
Yeah. And you've got tons of different companies that make uniforms in college football. It's not like the NFL where everybody's wearing Nike, so I don't know. To me, that seems kind of dumb. Related to that, though, Burl, fun question. What are your favorite college football uniforms?
Ooh, that's a good one. Besides Georgia, right?
Besides Georgia.
um, I actually really like Texas. I've always been a fan of the Longhorn. I think it's really cool, and the other one that I think just kind of stands out is Ole Miss, like when they're powder blues.
Or blues.
Yeah, with the Ole Miss script on the helmet. I mean, I think it looks cool.
Yeah. I mean, traditionally, I like Notre Dame. I like the gold helmets in the navy blue without the names on the back. I just thought, that's always cool. Yeah, I mean, your traditional ones, right? Alabama's they're Alabama, but I think their uniforms are cool because they're straightforward. The numbers on the helmets, Georgia Southern kind of copied that when Irk Russell went down there. And then, I like some of Oregon's uniforms. Like, I don't like all the crazy, crazy ones, but like just their regular green uniforms are pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll give you two more that I've always just enjoyed. One, you probably wouldn't even expect this from me, but UCLA. I've always liked their uniforms.
Well, you mentioned you like Ole Miss's powder blues, so
Yeah. So I like them. I remember back in the day playing college football, and when we were in college, and I would do dynasties with the different teams. Just like, oh, I like their uniforms. I'm gonna build a dynasty with them. I think I did like Missouri, it was Colorado and UCLA. It took him to several national championships. It was amazing playing in the Rose Bowl every year. It's great. And another one, and one I got to give up to our friend Kevin, Michigan State Spartans. The classic green with the Spartan on the helmet, just classic. It's so good.
cool. And last question. Should Georgia make the black jerseys part of their regular rotation, not just let's break them out?
I would actually really like to see Georgia with some alternate jerseys every now and then. Like a few years ago, the away uniforms that they had with the bars on the side.
40th anniversary of the national championship.
Yeah, I love those. Those were so cool.
Yeah. Our friend Seth used to always say that we should wear the black jerseys for any home night game that starts after 7 p.m. Now, with us moving to this new schedule where we're going to have a lot more night games, that might not make sense, but I think we should just do it. Black is one of our colors. It's not like it's an alternate. We should just do it once a year. One home game a year, we're going to wear the black jerseys. Take the drama out of it, take the superstition out of it, and just do it.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be no different than Penn State doing their whiteout.
Right. That's going to do it for this week. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Keep in mind that we're still running our series of the 50 greatest Georgia players of the 2000s. A new video comes out each day. But until next week, I'm Street.
I'm Burl.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.